It's a great time to be a Pokemon fan. The community is as big as ever with so much to look forward to. There are just so many questions at the same time. And today we're going to be exploring and dissecting all possible games that we could see in the future. And to help us with this, we got none else than DustyGogoat.
Hey everyone, it's DustyGogoat. Welcome back to my headcanon. Generation 8 has introduced some of the most radical changes to the Pokemon franchise. When this current wave of Sinnoh content passes, where will we end up? We want to know where the Pokemon franchise ends up in the long run. What does this all mean for the future of Pokemon games?
Question of the day, what Pokemon game do you want to see next? So let's start things off with November 2021, the release of BDSP created by ILCA. Now, if you don't know, ILCA is a studio that's separated away from the Game Freak company. No mainline Pokemon game has ever been developed by a studio other than Game Freak, and they're recreating the original Diamond and Pearl games with BDSP. Then we have the next year, which is 2022 in January, with something massive happening, which is, of course, the release of Pokemon Legends Arceus, made by Game Freak, the same people that have been making Pokemon for the last 2 decades, right? Up until this point, we know what's happening. Going forward now, we're going to be trying to predict what might happen, okay? These are predictions, so let's start it off like this. 2022 summer. In the immediate future, we can expect to see possibly these things. Pokemon Legends Arceus DLC. Could happen summer next year. It would make sense, and also they could add some stuff in. Now, I personally think it's less likely, but there's always a possibility for it. DLC seems to be something new that they want to do, but will it happen for Legends Arceus? We don't know, as Legends Arceus is a game that's different from anything that Game Freak has ever created before. It's a very different formula, it's a very different release style and everything. Then we also have another possible thing, which is a Sword and Shield patch/update. So no DLC for Sword and Shield, but an update of some sort. An update that will allow us to maybe connect, between Hoenn and Sword and Shield and Legends Arceus and Pokemon BDSP to send Pokemon from BDSP and PLA, or Pokemon Legends Arceus, over to Pokemon Sword and Shield. So some sort of patch that makes them available in that game. Will that happen? We don't know. There's a possibility for that, but we'll have to wait and see. Then, however, we have 2022 or the 2023 holiday. This is the time that I think is the most interesting, right? Here we have a little bit of a weird situation. So, we predict that Generation 9 will be announced for a holiday 2022 release. That's when we think it's going to happen. I personally think that, DustyGogoat thinks that, but there's always a chance things might change around. They could release it in early 2023, but the reason they have to do this is because typically modern Pokemon generations release every 3 years. It is also then possible, however, for it to be pushed back to 2023 release, as there are times where we've seen the 3-year gap actually extend by another year. For example, there was 4 years between Generation 3 and 4, and 4 years between Generation 4 and 5. So there is a chance they could still do that, but this pattern of 3-year releases has been followed for a while, but it never goes over the 4-year, cycle. If it goes over 4 years, then something is clearly wrong, and they will run into trouble themselves, because if they don't have Generation 9, they can't really keep the franchise moving. Generation 9 is going to be a bigger game than Sword and Shield by a long shot.
RuffledRowlit, you are absolutely right. Generation 9 is an inevitability at this point, and with a new generation, we are undoubtedly getting a new batch of Pokemon. For most people, this is the most exciting aspect of a new Pokemon game. Historically, around 70 new Pokemon have been introduced every single generation. If we're talking about Generation 1, 3, or 5, those generations had released at least 130, upwards of 160 new Pokemon for a single generation. However, because Game Freak is already having trouble implementing Pokemon that already exist, it is likely that the total number of Generation 9 Pokemon will be kept at a minimum. The less new Pokemon models that Game Freak needs to make means they can focus their attention on correcting larger issues. Regardless, another hugely exciting part of a new Pokemon generation is the initial reveal of the starter Pokemon. Fire, water, and grass type Pokemon. This is so nostalgic. This choice is the first choice that any trainer setting out on a Pokemon adventure needs to make. And I've got some ideas for what Pokemon these starter Pokemon are likely, or at least should be, based on. I think it is likely that the fire starter will either be based on a horse, sheep, ox, or snake. These are the remaining animal inspirations found in the Chinese zodiac. It is understood that the Chinese zodiac has been a source of inspiration for all fire-type Pokemon. If you disagree, there is an open comment section. Personally, I would love to see a fire-type snake starter. It could be Fire Ghost, Fire Psychic, anything really that allows this Pokemon to have a ghostly, ethereal aura around it. This aura will allow the designers to give this Pokemon many human-like attributes. As of the last few generations, Game Freak loves to make their starters very bipedal, and I think This type combination will allow the snake Pokemon to remain physically like a snake, but still have these ghostly attributes that fit more in line with the other bipedal starters. The water and grass type Pokemon, however, do not have such clear patterns. Some say that the water starters are based on weaponry and the grass type starter Pokemon are based on extinct creatures. I think that this holds no water. Basically, inspiration for these Pokemon can be taken from anywhere. Some common fan concepts suggest that a water type starter could be based on the platypus and a grass type Pokemon could be based on a bear. Now let's talk about a new evolution for Eevee. The last time Eevee received a new evolution was in 2013 with the Pokemon X and Y games. The Kalos region introduced a new fairy type, so it was fitting that they created a new Eeveelution to market and embody this new typing. It has been nearly a decade since Sylveon was introduced, so it feels like Generation 9 is the perfect time to introduce a new Eeveelution. Most likely, this new Eeveelution will be a counterpart to the fairy type Sylveon. Sylveon was the first Eeveelution to be introduced as a standalone Pokemon. Some possible counterparts to this fairy type would be Dragon and Fighting type, as those types are weak to fairy type moves, or Steel and Poison type. Both of those types are actually strong against the fairy type. All of these would make excellent candidates for a new Eevee evolution. In earlier generations, each Pokemon type was classified as either special or physical attacks. If we apply this filter, you can see that every Eeveelution possesses a type which corresponds to the special category, and almost every single special type is represented except for the Dragon type. This is the strongest piece of evidence suggesting that we will one day see a Dragon type Eevee evolution. If this does not happen, there are two other options. One, this historical formula will be broken and we will see the first evolution of a quote-unquote physical typing. This physical typing would be represented as either a steel, ghost, rock, or a flying type. All of those are great options. Or number two, another new type will be introduced entirely in Generation 9, and Eevee will evolve once again to fulfill the role of mascot. These are some of the most exciting aspects of a new generation for me. However, there's so many other things that we could expect and anticipate in a Generation 9 game. We are likely to get a new set of fossil Pokemon. Obviously, we're going to have a new set of box legendaries. There will actually be a whole slew of additional legendary Pokemon. Heck, they could even bring back Ultra Beasts. We will, of course, have new Route 1 bug, rodent, and bird type Pokemon. There will likely be a Pikachu clone, something that looks like Pikachu but has a new type or gimmick. I think that there's a lot of animals that still have not been represented as Pokemon. For example, we still don't have a dolphin Pokemon. Tapu Fini does not count.
Every generation has always introduced like a significantly improved game engine, so we're expecting it to be Legends Arceus quality or even higher. Now, the engine we've had for Sword and Shield is the same engine used for Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and I think the same one will be used for BDSP. Now, Legends, on the other hand, is a strange one because we don't know what engine that's running on, and we won't know until the game is fully released next year. That's when we'll fully know. In 2022, we'll know what the deal is, and we'll just have to wait and see what the case is going to be there. Now, will the National Dex return? Well, we don't really know. BDSP has all models from Gen 1 to 4. PLA has additional models and new Pokemon in it, so we don't really know. And 3 years to make new models and add new Pokemon. What can we really expect here, right? Will we see the National Dex return in Generation 9? We don't really know. BDSP, on the other hand, we know that we're only going to get up until Generation 4. PLA is probably going to have anywhere between 400 and 500 Pokemon, so definitely not all of the Pokemon, but just a specific amount of them. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Now, what will it be based on? Well, we've kind of been speculating about a lot of possible places, right? Some real world like regions it could be based on are some of these. For example, they could base it on something like California as a region, like Northern California is where Masuda visited last, and they could base it on that if we're going to the US again, which if we're following the pattern where they go from Europe, America, they could do that next, right? There could also be another, European country. Well, why not? There is a connection between Kalos and Galar, which one is based on France, one is based in the UK, two countries that have had conflicts in history that is, well, as long as history itself, right? Basically, there's a strong connection there, and they could include another one. They could include the Netherlands, they could do Sweden, Norway, something like that. They could use Greece, Spain, Italy. There's a lot of countries that are usable there. They could also go for a Mediterranean country, right? So, with a connection to Kalos. So, again, like I mentioned, more or less down towards Spain, etc. There's also the possibility of an African country. You know, you can go with Egypt in that case, South Africa, Congo, right? There's a lot of possible countries you can go with there, but then there are also the more likely ones. If we go towards the path of something like an Australian region, that's the one that's been mostly speculated. There are possible hints in the games of Sword and Shield on some of the maps and stuff, like there's a globe that shows specifically something that looks like Australia, could possibly be hinting that. And there's also the, you know, kind of a possible one here, which is a Canada region, which could connect to Unova, which kind of is an interesting combination because going into the future, the next remakes after BDSP have to be the Unova remakes.
The last few generations have introduced some of the wildest new game mechanics that the franchise has ever seen. Mega Evolution, G-Max, Z-Moves. I'm curious if any of these mechanics will ever return in the future, but in the meantime, I'm sure that Generation 9 will introduce some sort of new mechanic to hook new players. Our number one choice for a new game mechanic for Generation 9 would be a new Pokemon type entirely. Only 2 generations have introduced a new type. Both the Steel and Dark type were introduced in Generation 2, and in Generation 6, trainers discovered the Fairy type. Some excellent contenders for new types include the Sound type, the Cosmic type. This would be a type to include and describe outer space creatures, aliens. We also could be looking at an artificial type. This type could also be called Technology type, Cyber type, Digital type. A great Pokemon to represent this type would be Porygon in the Porygon line. That Pokemon, I think, is a great physical representation of what this type could look like. We've already been introduced to Ultra Beasts and a lot of Pokemon who have history and lore tied up with outer space. I think the Cosmic type could be retroactively applied to a lot of existing Pokemon. Pokemon like Clefairy are said to come from the moon. Staryu and Starmie call out to the night sky. The Sound type is something that fans have been anticipating for a very long time now. Sound type has been cemented as a secondary type, an honorary type you could say, with a lot of Pokemon and moves working around this invisible framework of a Sound type. There are plenty of Pokemon that could fit nicely into this new Sound typing. Another really interesting mechanic that could be introduced into the Pokemon franchise is that of armor forms. Rumors about armored Pokemon appeared for the lead up of Generation 8. We've also seen armored Mewtwo in Pokemon Go as well as the anime. Although we've seen armored form Pokemon in the past, in the anime and Pokemon Go, we've never seen this type of form or mechanic in the main series Pokemon games. This mechanic would be very dynamic. Trainers would be able to collect unique armor pieces throughout their journey, throughout the game, similar to how you collect Mega Stones. Each unique armor type increases specific stats, abilities, and move strengths on the Pokemon you choose to equip the armor to. You'd have to find the right armor pieces for the right Pokemon. This type of min-maxing is not foreign to the current Pokemon competitive meta game, with so many different combinations of moves, abilities, and stat distributions. Min-maxing has always been a thing. An armor mechanic like this would fit very snugly in the Pokemon universe. These armors can be applied to any Pokemon similar to Z-Moves and Dynamax. However, this mechanic would be more dynamic and strategic than all of the previous gimmicks, even Mega Forms. Additionally, it would be very appealing to see Pokemon physically and visually wearing the armor that we equip to them in our item bag. I think this is something that we could be looking at further down the line as we look towards Generation 9 and beyond. Another fan favorite legacy mechanic is Shadow Pokemon. Shadow Pokemon debuted in the GameCube games. This includes Pokemon Colosseum and XD Gale of Darkness. Not only were there a huge swath of shadow Pokemon with a shadowy aura around them, there was even an entirely new Pokemon design built around this mechanic, and that was Shadow Lugia. Shadow Lugia was an entirely new Pokemon and design. After Generation 3, Shadow Pokemon kind of went off into the shadows, but for the last 3 or so years, Pokemon Go has resurrected this mechanic, and it's currently an active mechanic. What I want to know is, could these shadow Pokemon be brought into the main series and expanded upon? I think there's no reason why these shadow Pokemon couldn't be brought into Pokemon Home and then later into Sword and Shield. Pokemon fusion has been seen throughout the years in various stories. This includes the manga, anime, and even the main series Pokemon games. Yes, Pokemon fusion is actually a current mechanic in the Pokemon universe, but it's typically reserved for legendary Pokemon. Pokemon like Kyurem, Necrozma, and Calyrex are able to fuse with their respective box legendaries. There's also some fun fan theories that suggest Pokemon fusion has existed ever since Generation 1. This fan theory focuses specifically on trait evolutions. The theory goes that Graveler and Machoke, when they get traded, Graveler loses its second pair of arms to Machoke, who evolves and gains 2 new limbs. A similar transaction can be seen in the Generation 5 games where Shelmet and Carablast evolve by trading together and trading elements of themselves. At the moment where these Pokemon share their attributes, they evolve. This next example of Pokemon fusion could get us banned off YouTube. Pokemon have been said to fuse with human beings. Even in Generation 1, Mewtwo is said to be created using the DNA from Mew and a human being. In Generation 7, Lusamine and Nihilego fuse together as a Generation 7 boss. Trainers fight this boss at the end of an Ultra Wormhole. Heck, we even have Ash Ketchum fusing with Greninja. If this fusion mechanic was to be brought into the main series games, I think that this mechanic would allow certain normal Pokemon to fuse together. Only a select few Pokemon could actually fuse. You would apply the fusion out of the battle, just like the current fusion mechanic. These Pokemon can be fused and unfused at will. Some examples of Pokemon that could fuse together. I'll share some examples of what Pokemon would likely be able to fuse together. I would say any bipedal Pokemon would be able to fuse with Hoenn if it had arms. I also think any human-like Pokemon would be able to fuse together to ride a horse. Anything like Rapidash, Zebstrika, or the Crown Tundra steeds. I would love to see some machine or inanimate object Pokemon fusing together, something like Magnemite and Klinklang coming together to fuse an ultimate machine. I also think it's very likely that we get a lot of silly fusions. Not all new Pokemon forms can be edgy and epic. I think the Pokemon Company will get very excited about creating a fusion where Snorlax eats a food Pokemon.
So, 2023 and 2025, we're gonna just like look at what's gonna happen now in the next 3 years after Generation 9, right? So, post Gen 9, what happens then? Well, Gen 9 is hopefully the game we have all ever wanted, right? It might be the best game ever, or it might be horrible. We don't really know. But like many options need to kind of fill the space between Generation 9 and Generation 10. One of the possible ones here is Generation 9 DLC. Very possible to allow players to continue their adventure and save file, keeps like people returning to their existing game, and just in general, it would make a lot of sense because if you think about it, the DLC kind of exists now to replace the third version games which we've had in the past. Like for example, with Ruby and Sapphire, you had Emerald. With Diamond and Pearl, you had Platinum. With Black and White, you had Black and White 2, more or less, right? But basically, the DLC now exists to replace that. Now, the ideal game would be like with a robust experience, right? The Pokemon Gen could last 5 years if Game Freak continued to add to the story, lore, experience, and the Pokédex with DLC and give players a reason to return to their game and to Pokemon instead of having us buy a new game every single year. They could add a DLC that has players visit like one town from an existing region. You know, maybe you take like some sort of, I don't know, like a train, from Galar to Kalos, or a Corviknight taxi to like Mount Silver in Johto, and you go take things on there. Like that personally, I think would be an awesome way to have the players experience more or less, right? Like more of the actual, generation, so to say, and more of the game, and have more things to do than just play the game, quit it, and then go back to it like what? Never again, essentially, or replay it sometime in the future, like 10 years from now. But yeah, just giving us a reason to keep playing more than just for a day or so. But it doesn't need to be a whole region, by the way, to be included. Just little pieces, right? Same way like we have the Sinjo Ruins or something like that. Like these little pieces from other places that can be included. And also, Generation 9 could keep going if we had like a world that felt more dynamic and alive. And oftentimes, like we've noticed with Pokemon, that it feels more static and lifeless. That's the big issue with Pokemon. It doesn't feel like a living world. Legends Arceus seems to be going in that direction right now, but we'll see what that's going to be like. Now, we think the DLC, however, is here to stay. It makes sense. They did say that they are more or less like deleting the third versions, and Gen 9 sequel third version, or second main set of games, is definitely going to be a DLC. Now, Game Freak could return to this like 25-year-old formula of releasing a third version. That could happen, but DLC I think is more likely. We have not seen a classic third version game since like Generation 4 with Platinum, because after that we had Black and White, and then we had Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, which wasn't the way they used to do it. But it could also get expensive for people to keep buying it like that, so maybe that's the reason they won't do it, and DLC seems to make a better sense, right? And they can include enough new content in there to warrant you purchasing it, and they still make a lot of money from it nonetheless. Now, third games historically don't perform as well as launch original games. That's pretty logical. We've seen that. You can see that with Emerald, for example. They didn't sell that great, but still made money, still sold a decent chunk. But at the end of the day, DLC is easier for them to do, but also it makes less money. So that's kind of the dilemma that exists there. Now, to return to this formula, Game Freak would need to give consumers like a good reason to actually go back to this, because currently DLC seems to fit the formula better for most part, and viewers, I guess fans, don't really need to spend as much money this way. If they buy the DLC, you don't need to spend as much money.
I think it's a good time to start talking about Pokemon remakes. Sinnoh was the last region to get a fresh coat of paint. We believe that Johto is the next Pokemon game to receive a remake, and there are two possible ways where we could see Johto in the next few years. First one is Let's Go Johto. As Pokemon Go continues to drive huge revenue margins, this remains a possibility always. We do not like this concept, however. Let's Go was an incredibly fun game despite the community's reluctance. Like I said, it's not a bad game, but truly feels like a one-off title. Let's Go was created to capitalize off of Pokemon Go's success and popularity. In a lot of ways, this seems like its own standalone canon. This Pokemon Go canon would include the events of Pokemon Go. This would include Team Rocket, Shadow Pokemon, and then also the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee events. Maybe even the Colosseum games, considering those have Shadow Pokemon, but that's kind of a stretch. At the moment, Pokemon Go has been integrated with Pokemon Home, so it seems like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and the unique feature that it brought is kind of irrelevant. Although a Let's Go Johto game is a possibility, we have a better suggestion. Enter a Heartgold Soulsilver remake developed by ILCA. With the success of BDSP, this would be an excellent opportunity for Pokemon to produce another remake in this exact same style. Heartgold Soulsilver is a fan favorite, often referred to as one of the best Pokemon games, period, no cap. In Generation 4, we were given 2 sets of Sinnoh games right before a new Johto experience, so during this current period of Sinnoh remakes, we are already receiving 2 sets of Sinnoh games that would include BDSP and Pokemon Legends Arceus. I don't think it's too far-fetched to expect another Johto game after all of this. This would either take place in 2022 or 2023. Okay, so think of it like this. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl currently have assets for every single Pokemon that would be in a Heartgold Soulsilver remake. This includes the overworld following animations, one of the hallmarks of these Johto remakes. That's like one of the main reasons why people like Heartgold Soulsilver. It's because of the following animations, and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl have already delivered those assets. Heartgold Soulsilver is already a remake of the original Generation 2 games. Rather than taking a risk with an entirely new story or visual style, ILCA could polish the Heartgold Soulsilver game to modernize it for the Switch. Okay, so if I'm gonna get greedy here, why not have ILCA develop remakes for all of the 2D sprite-based Pokemon games? Game Freak would never miss an opportunity to revisit Kanto, and Kanto could be explored with the story in the world of Firered and Leafgreen. These games came out so many years ago, and it would be refreshing to replay these on a modern console. I would consider Firered Leafgreen the definitive version of the sprite-based Kanto. This version of Kanto would include fairy types. A Kanto developed by ILCA in Generation 8 or 9 would include fairy types, the Sevi Islands, and home connectivity. Okay, I told you I'm gonna be greedy here. I would absolutely love to see this Kanto game completely flipped on its head. We play through Kanto like normal. After defeating the Kanto Indigo Plateau in the Elite Four, you beat the champion. Now we can explore Johto as post-game content. Trainers could roam the Johto region 3 years prior to the events of Gold and Silver This would include new gym leaders to battle. Young trainers like Faulkner, Bugsy, and even Whitney may be too young to represent a gym challenge. What leaders instead would we see in their absence? This would be an opportunity to explore the Johto region like never before. Okay, I'm gonna rein in my desires a little bit. This whole concept of another Kanto game, I think it's very unlikely because Kanto already exists on the Switch. In 2018, we got Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, a great rendition of the Kanto region. We'll have to wait and see what happens. However, some other games that could be faithfully remade by ILCA would include the Generation 3 games, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, as well as the Generation 5 games, Black and White, and Black 2, White 2.
So next we're going to talk about Switch ports. Now, Nintendo Switch Online currently offers players to play a selection of games from the classic system, so NES, SNES, Nintendo 64, and Sega Genesis. And these things are not bad, right? But however, people have speculated that Pokemon games could be added to this feature. They say the Virtual Console is dead, so this is where Pokemon games will end up, which would make a lot of sense. However, this is not really the case. Now, the core series Pokemon games will never really be able to be bought in subscription, and the reason for this is because they are not those like first-party games by Nintendo. They are second-party, right? Which means that the company themselves, like the Pokemon Company and Game Freak, have more control. And I'm pretty sure Game Freak and the Pokemon Company want to make more money, and they can make more money by selling their games again separately, just reselling them as a Virtual Console type of deal. I feel like they would prefer that over putting it into a subscription where it's cheaper and people can just play their game as much as they want to. And that's kind of the thing here. Pokemon games aren't really a pick up and play type of game. Every save file is like a reflection of every player's identity. These games don't fit the paid subscription model either, right? They're not really, that's not really what they fit with, right? Now, despite like the national decks, the Pokemon Company Incorporated wants players to be able to keep their teams long term, right? And we've seen this with the accessibility of Pokemon Home being on both your mobile as well as being on your Nintendo Switch, allowing you to essentially keep your current game going by, you know, moving your Pokemon over to the home and then into the future Pokemon games. So you can kind of keep your team and keep your Pokemon spirit more or less going for a long term. And also the Pokemon games are usually worth more than like $3.99 USD a month, at least in the head of the Pokemon Company. They are games that, generally speaking, they warrant more attention. They want more, essentially, money for them, because just the name, just the Pokemon name is so important. It's a name that carries a lot of weight behind. Now, we predict that we will see a few waves of classic Pokemon games being ported to Nintendo Switch in the next few years, possibly. So, we can definitely expect to see Generation 1, 2, and maybe even 3 being ported over. Generation 1 most definitely, and Generation 2, as we've already seen these being ported over to the 3DS. So that's definitely a possibility. Generation 3 is the only one that has not been ported yet, but it definitely could happen going into the future. Because of the legacy of these titles, we think they will definitely be available as their sort of like physical collector's box release as well. The same way they did like the recent Mario bundle thing. So they could do something like that. This honestly wouldn't be too strange. They definitely could do something like this, and it would make a lot of sense. It might be like a fun way to like actually have these games physically if you can't buy the originals, you know, so they can be included in like maybe a Switch box set, you know, like with a brand new Switch that fits to these games, as well as possibly doing reprints of them as well, like the original like designs and whatnot. They could do that because a lot of people can't even get access to those games because they are super expensive to buy from like collectors and stuff. Like people are putting ludicrous prices on old games, and they could just do this by making them more like easily accessible. But they can also just make them available digitally, which would be the easiest thing in the world. But of course, some people don't like that, and some people want to have physical copies, and they could definitely do a box bundle for that.
If we're talking about Pokemon games being ported to the Nintendo Switch, I think there's a small window of main series games that could realistically be ported and it not be really a cash grab. The first set of games would be Generations 1 and Generations 2. This is Red, Blue, Green, and Yellow version for Generation 1, and Gold, Silver, Crystal for Generation 2. These games were already ported onto the DS 5 years ago, and already I think that there's a lot of people, a lot of kids who have not experienced these games the way I have, the way RuffledRowlit has. But those versions of the game are only compatible with Pokemon Bank. This is a software that is slowly becoming irrelevant due to Pokemon Home. Let's bring these games up and make them future-proof and compatible with Pokemon Home. Generation 3 games, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, as well as the Kanto remakes, Firered and Leafgreen. Generation 3 games are great as is and would be a great addition to the Switch library. When Generations 1 and 2 were introduced on the Virtual Console for the first time, there were a lot of in-game events that were kind of locked away that were made accessible for newer players. I think for the Generation 3 games, if they were ported, there's a ton of features, hidden events, all sorts of things that are near impossible to experience in this current decade. I would love to see e-reader functionality be brought back into Generation 3 games. I think it'd be nice if those features were unlocked, let's say maybe post-game. Another feature I think I would like to see in Generation 3 games, a port of these Gen 3 games, is the automatic fix of clock-based events, aka the dead battery problem. This is something that has plagued all of the physical cartridges of at least the Hoenn-based Generation 3 games. A port of Gen 3 games could also unlock event Pokemon in encounters and locations that have been locked away due to real-world mystery gift events. These are Pokemon like Mew and the Faraway Island, Latios and Latias with the Eon ticket. I would love to encounter Deoxys, Jirachi, and Lugia and Ho-Oh in the Generation 3 games. And of course, a port of Generation 3 games would mean a return to the Battle Frontier. What are the odds they retcon the Generation 3 Battle Frontier?
Some other possible Pokemon games we could see. One of these could be the Aura region games, so Colosseum and XD Gale of Darkness. Now, Shadow Pokemon are canon in the Pokemon Go verse. I'm kind of tempted to theorize about how these games are actually the best fit for like a new Let's Go game. Shadow Pokemon is a mechanic that Pokemon Go players are familiar with, so it would make sense to remake these games with maybe some sort of Let's Go twist to it, or a Pokemon Go twist to it that would make the Pokemon Go fans come in and play those games and buy those games, giving them a bit of a boost, because Shadow Pokemon are something that's very present in the minds of those players, right? But the Team Rocket and whatnot, defeating them, getting the Shadow Pokemon from them, and then, you know, cleansing them more or less, right? Or purifying them. So it would make sense in that sense, right? It would actually fit really well. However, bringing then Shadow Pokemon into Gen 9 could be pretty interesting. If they actually do that, going into the future, if they do remake these games, you know, or make some form of recreation of XD Gale of Darkness and Colosseum, right? If they do something like that, it would actually be pretty interesting. However, there could also be connectivity to Generation 3 ports, Pokemon Go and Home. All of these could be just kind of connected well into like a weird little mess. Now, Purified Pokemon could also have a unique mark or a battle title that fits them specifically when you put them into Home and then over into Gen 9. Now, these games were the first traditional core Pokemon games that had a kind of a story on console. These were the first console Pokemon games, like mainline home console Pokemon games that were also in like 3D and everything, with a story and a plot. Even though they are not like main series canon games, they are substantial games that should be brought onto the Switch and introduced to a new generation of players, as some people have not been able to play those. So we can talk about any other like possible, you know, ports. You know, I feel like one of the possible ones I would want to see going into the future, besides like XD Gale of Darkness and Colosseum, would for me personally be something like Battle Revolution. Now, I know the battle simulator thing might not work, but it would make sense, because if they had a battle simulator like that and maybe added in some sort of battle pass to it or something like that to just incentivize you to come back, or a system where you have to unlock Pokemon to actually be able to use them in battle, I feel like it would be a good way for people to enjoy like battling without having to rely on every new Pokemon release, right? Because sometimes the meta in the current releases can be horrible, atrocious, and it can make a lot of problems. But if it's a separate game for just battling, just competitive battling Pokemon, and you can make your own team, etc., whatever you want to do with its own kind of like meta and everything, I feel like that would be better, because it would cause less issues just in general. So personally, that's what I would want. Now, another possible thing could be the Pokemon trading card game, you know, from Game Boy Color. They could return with that, as Pokemon cards are larger in 2021 than they've essentially ever been, right? The only time we can think of is back in the 90s when Pokemon came out. That's when the hype was maybe the same level, right? The online Pokemon TCG app, which was just relaunched, by the way, this could also indicate that they're aligning their efforts to attract new TCG players. They want to get more TCG players in now onto the gameplay stage of Pokemon, right? Into the games rather than just the TCG. They want to like make sure that if you're a Pokemon fan, you're not just a TCG fan or a game fan, you're a TCG merch and game fan, as well as anime and manga. They want you just to enjoy every part of it, right? And porting the original Gen 1 TCG video game could actually be a great way to attract also Gen 1 players back into the hobby, maybe bring along like their, you know, family, like children, you know, spouses, etc. And of course, we can't forget Pokemon Pinball.
Over the years, there have been so many unique battle mechanics proudly introduced and then eventually cast into the shadows. I think it would be advantageous for Pokemon to introduce a dedicated battle simulator. Let's dub this the Pokemon Showdown killer. Historically, every new Pokemon game becomes the primary battle format, while Game Freak retires battle mechanics every few years. Those mechanics live on through the fanbase and through third-party battle simulators. In an attempt to reclaim countless competitive trainers, an official Pokemon battle simulator would be a hub for all trainers. This battle simulator can be updated to stay current and could include all battle formats. This would be singles, doubles, triples, rotations, and I haven't forgotten about Sky Battles. A game like this would include all Pokemon and forms. This would include the entire National Pokedex, solving the National Dex crisis. If all Pokemon are available in the battle simulator, then it's not the end of the world when select amount of Pokemon are not available in the classic Pokemon Journey game, the classic RPGs. This Pokemon battle simulator would include all battle gimmicks, Megas, Z-moves, Dynamax, maybe even Shadow Pokemon. Anything else that you could think of that has been in a game previously would be in this type of game. And something I'm really excited about is this type of battle simulator allowing for customization of the battle interface. We could customize battle backgrounds, button colors, battle music. We could also customize the rule set. Customized rule sets are something that is already very popular. This would include such things as no hold items, no switching, no evasion clause, or even no sleep clause. And the best thing about a game like this would that it would include all generations 1 to generation 8. And I also think a battle within one of these generations, let's say generation 4 for example, would include the character model or sprite that matches the generation. So you would be playing a generation 4 battle with the battle sprites, and I think that's so nostalgic. Imagine this feature is similar to Mario Maker. Players can create custom battle formats based on specific rule sets, and then they can save those for future use or share them with friends or even host public tournaments. Players could create challenging NPC trainers with custom Pokemon teams to share with their friends or even the entire internet. How cool would it be to battle a custom Cynthia team at level 100? Day 1, there would be Ash's most powerful team. I could see that every anime character would have their own team. Players could even create and name teams around celebrities or real-world figures and make a team around them. I think the possibilities are endless on this one, and it's really exciting. I'm disappointed that this isn't already a thing. We haven't seen a battle simulator since Gen 4. Now, a common argument against this never happening would be that if the simulator has more Pokemon than the base game, why buy a base game? A lot of people would be saying that Pokemon would lose money, so they'll never do this. A way to avoid this problem, I think a purchase of a new game, let's say Pokemon Legends Arceus, would unlock all associated battle mechanics and formats. And even the Pokemon, you could unlock the Pokemon in this game. You could unlock Kleavor in this battle simulator if you've played Pokemon Legends Arceus. Also, I believe that the majority of players, their philosophy is really that they buy Pokemon games for the entire experience. I think that a battle simulator is incredibly different from the main series games and adventure. The beauty of a battle simulator would be that the trainers don't need to worry about grinding for the perfect Pokemon or item. You don't need to put in a ton of hours. This would also hugely disincentivize people from hacking their game. This battle simulator is Pokemon creative mode. You can do whatever you want. If you can think of the best Pokemon team, you can build the best Pokemon team, and then you can battle with the best Pokemon team.
So let's talk about more possible Legends games. Now, there could be a lot of possible ones here. A lot of the ones that could happen would be the Japanese-inspired ones, like regions. So these would be the Kanto, Johto, and Hoenn ones, because those are the first 3, and with, Sinnoh being the last Japanese-based Pokemon region. And of course, there is one place left still haven't done anything about. But what could they do here? Well, Kanto, Johto, and Hoenn, they could definitely connect this with Hisui, similar to the Elder Scrolls games, where basically each game is set in a deeply rich and dynamic region that neighbors the regions of the other games, right? Like, basically, every part there is connected. Like, every game is a separate entity with its own history, lore, and everything, but they are neighboring regions to each other. So why not do the same thing with these ones, with Kanto, Johto, and Hoenn, getting their own Legends games that feature in one way or another an old version of these places, right? A one that's far back into the past, right? I think that would be a really good way for them to introduce it. Now, characters like in these games could also have like references to other towns and locations in foreign regions, right? They can have connections to themselves, to each other, the way Skyrim does it, and the way Oblivion and all the Elder Scrolls games kind of do it between each other. Now, this type of world building is difficult for Pokemon because the details of newer regions didn't exist when they were building the old games, right? So of course there is an issue and a conflict there. Now, if Pokemon Pokemon Legends becomes an ongoing series of games, developers have at least 8 other regions to reference, right? They could easily do that then. And they could easily go through and do that, because honestly, Pokemon is running into that issue of having too many Pokemon soon, so it makes sense if they want to like do these Legends games where they don't have to make a bunch of brand new Pokemon, but only a few new ones and a bunch of new forms and stuff. So that could always happen, and if they're running out of places to base the Pokemon games on, then they can just keep remaking it essentially, which is always a possibility. Now these other regions could have characters, Pokemon events, and locations to call back to, like right now what we have in Legends. That game has got characters that are essentially direct callbacks or, you know, references to future characters. This is also a great opportunity to make Pokemon, the world itself, feel more immersive and lived in and more realistic, right? Make us feel like these characters actually exist, and combined with like Kanto and Johto region, because those games are geographically connected to each other, which we literally have seen, it wouldn't really be strange to see something like, you know, this happen. Now, one possible one could be Pokemon Legends Mew, so the story and mystery of Mew could be actually talked about here, like a sort of prequel to Generation 1's Red, Blue, Green, and Yellow. Now, evil people could be trying to capture Mew and use it for science, and eventually they fail because of the main character, which would be you, the player. Or the evil scientists succeeded in this, and this is the kind of the creation story of Mewtwo, right, and how they got its DNA and stuff going into the future. And this can take place anywhere between 50 to 100 years before Gen 1, or anywhere in that kind of time span, right? So definitely a Pokemon Legends Mew could happen. Another one is Pokemon Legends Lugia or Ho-Oh, or maybe even both, as having a dual version thing. Kind of the creation story of the legendary birds or the legendary beasts in this case. That's possibly what they could do here, right? They can tell us how the legendary beasts, Entei, Raikou, and Suicune were created, as well as maybe how like the kind of like weird like synergy works between Lugia and Ho-Oh, you know, how they work between each other and everything about them. There's a lot of lore that can be explored here, specifically in Johto, because Johto is a place that is more ancient and has more ancient things to it than something like Hoenn, I guess, and Kanto. It's got more ancient things, more ancient ruins, you know, the Ruins of Alph, for example, are there, so they could definitely do that. And then, of course, there is Pokemon Legends Celebi. There we can take a look at something like a story of time travel, because we do have that with Celebi. The Ilex Forest has got a lot of things there. Could take elements from the Celebi movie with Samson Oak, right? So, you know, young boy. You got original Pokeball, like the original one, which now we have seen like these ones that exist in Legends Arceus, right? And explain why Pokemon Legends Arceus has the Arceus phone, which is still a very strange little thing. But basically, there's a lot of possibilities here. So Mount Silver could also function similarly to Mount Coronet in Hisui. It ties like Old Kanto and Johto together, right? Could be like a nice little meeting point for the two of them. I just think there's a lot of possibilities for a Legends game based on this area, right? It could be Legends Celebi, or it could be Legends Lugia or Ho. It could be any of these possibilities, because they really have a lot to go with. Like, these regions have so much lore in canon that it has significance in like our real world, but also in that world itself. There's so much to work with, right? And why wouldn't you want to explore like a familiar map? Like, a lot of people love that. That's because people don't mind going back and revisiting the past. So why not do that with something like this?
You know, you talk about revisiting the past, and all I can think about is Unova. We are at least 5 years away from a remake or a remaster of Unova, but it is inevitable. These games will come out at some point. There are a couple different ways they could tackle revisiting the Unova region. First off, is the most obvious and hyped, is a Pokemon Legends Arceus style Unova game. This would allow players to explore the lore in the region before the events that took place during Black and White and its sequels. Fans would love to see the original dragon in its former glory before it was split into two. However, the original dragon that is referred to honestly might just be a metaphor. This would mean that our hopes for a Legends style game could really just be a pipe dream. If we did get a Pokemon Legends Kyurem, we would see the war of truth and ideals. We would witness the splitting of Kyurem, and that would truly be epic. I think it would satisfy longtime fans. We would also meet the two brothers. It is said that both of these brothers are ancestors of N. Really, this would be an amazing game. The second option is Unova as a current engine remake. This is a sensitive topic, I believe. This is what fans wanted for Generation 4, and of course, we got BDSP instead. Historically, this type of game is always what we have received, so it's not out of the question, I don't believe. ILCA creating remakes or remasters really could be a one-off game. I think it would be beautiful to see Unova as a full-scaled world. Because the region is based on New York, I'm now imagining gameplay similar to Grand Theft Auto. I don't know if we're gonna see that. Okay, so the Caparaja in the room is that there is a good chance that ILCA remasters the Generation 5 games. This would allow for both sets of Generation 5 games to get their proper attention, and I think that is needed. Generation 5 is the first generation to have two completely new and unique stories and protagonists. In my opinion, there is no definitive title. I don't think Black and White are better than the sequels. Actually, I might believe that Black 2 and White 2 are the better games. But anyways, ILCA could create both of these titles and deliver the games during the lead up to a new holiday game developed by Game Freak. This holiday game would of course be Black 3 and White 3, so we would get a whole year of Unova. With ILCA handling remakes, Game Freak can focus on creating their legacy Pokemon characters and building on top of the existing Unova storyline. 100% we would be getting Unovan regional variants. I'll tell you, this is my primary item on my Masuda wish list. And as we continue moving into the future, we can eventually see revisits to the Kalos and even the Hoenn region. But both of these games will soon celebrate their 10-year anniversary. Kalos is a region that feels incomplete, being the only region in the franchise to not be revisited even once. Fans have a lot of unanswered questions about the lore and the region, and Game Freak created a lot of assets that went on to be unutilized. I would be thrilled to revisit Kalos in any format, whether it's a full remake, a remaster, or a direct sequel.
There's only so far we can accurately predict. Now, the Pokemon Company is flexible and reacts to kind of the fan reception of Pokemon games, and if a game performs poorly, future titles may be scrapped. So if Legends doesn't do well, we could end up not seeing any more Legends games. And if a game overperforms, the company may realign to produce more games in that similar vein, right? In the later half of the decade, we can expect to, eventually see Generation 10, right? To 2026 or 2027.
And I really wonder what Generation 10 could bring to the franchise. Will we finally see Pokemon 1000? How much different will this game really be from Gen 8 and Gen 9? As a community, we need to decide what we realistically want and can expect to see from a main series Pokemon game.
Some people like battling, some like collecting, shiny hunting story. Now we all basically just want Pokemon to be fun, right? Somebody who shiny hunts wants the game to be fun for them. Somebody who likes just to collect Pokemon wants that to be fun. Somebody who likes a story like myself, I want that to be there. As long as they can provide us all with a little bit of that, and I feel like the game will basically do the job it needs to do.
While there is so much to love about Pokemon games, there is also incredible potential that is not being met. My vision for the next 10 years is that Pokemon creates games to capture unique experiences. Sword and Shield, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, Legends Arceus, these are all completely separate experiences. In the next 10 years, I want to see Pokemon games experiment, delight, and evolve.
Ladies and gentlemen, the future of Pokemon is looking bright. I also want you to say a big thank you to DustyGogoat for joining me in this video, putting together this mishmash of what Pokemon might look like in the future.
I am so grateful. A huge thanks to RuffledRowlit for allowing me to share his platform.
So if you guys want to check out DustyGogoat, please do. His channel will be linked down below. Go check it out there.
And if this is your first time seeing either of us, subscribe to RuffledRowlit. This is the most consistent Pokemon YouTuber I know. Thank you so much for watching.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for me.